Hi, my name's Kathy Millett, and this week we're looking at how to add ground to your jungle. So this week we're looking at ground cover. Now, the Master Chief spends a lot of time running through the ground, but normally you're quite distracted by what you're shooting. So if you spend a bit of time looking at it, there's not many stones, it's mostly brown, dark, and if I'm honest, quite a lot of leaves there just sitting there scattered. So all in all, very interesting. It's ground. So now I'm on to because that's all near the top. I'm going to do this bit around the bottom. And what can I do for that? Well, I'm going to use Celluclay because, well, you know, I've got it, it's on the side. I'm almost tempted to use Sculptamold, which is a really good, it's got a slight amount of plaster in it, it's very lightweight, it's paper mache with plaster. But the Celluclay's here, so I'm just going to mix them up in here. Celluclay. I'm going to make this quite thick. Okay, just tip a bit of water in and give it a bit of a stir. This is a recycled paper product, and every now and then you can see a bit of newsprint or something in here. So this is all what, you ever wonder what happens to your recycling? Well, one day that letter you threw away might become someone's diorama. Now, I don't want huge amounts of this because, you know, I want this to be quite lightweight. I just want enough to fill around the bottom. So that's what I'm going to be doing. Okay, now the trick is not to put it on too thickly. If you really want to put a thick layer on, I'd use Sculptamold because the plaster of Paris in Sculptamold stops it shrinking. Whereas this is Celluclay and it does shrink slightly as it dries. So do bear that in mind. I had shrinkage. I tried filling it with the ground and I still had shrinkage. And the only other thing to say is once I'd done the groundwork, it got painted along with the trees a brown. But if you're not doing trees or other things, just spray paint it with a bog standard brown because it's going to get covered, but it will just hide any gaps or flaws in your next layer. So this week, all we're going to need is brown tile grout, my all-time favourite ingredient for groundwork of any sort. I've got a little bit of Woodland Scenics blended turf and then some Noch leaves. These are the olive ones. They're HO, but they're about the right size I want, 07150. They're all going to work really well. So the first thing we need is to get the texture looking right, and we need to look at our halo pictures. Leaves, stones, all sorts. I don't want mine to be too taken from anything else, so I'm going to start with the grout and see how it looks. So, I normally decant this. Not quite sure where it's gone to, so I'm just going to put it on. It's got bits of and I don't want a huge amount. In some ways, I just need it to go over the top of what's there. So I'm going to put a bit on and then just use a brush, preferably an older brush because it can kind of knack it, just to spread it around and bed in any bits, and especially around the edge here. You might find it starts to disappear because the Celluclay has pulled away. This isn't my final bit, but I want to fill these edges in, and the easiest way to do that is to dampen this off now and put in some more grout whilst it's damp, and then it won't fall down the gaps. It's a bit of a cheat's way. You know, I could have gone and filled it properly. And there's a couple of ways you can dampen these things. This is isopropyl alcohol, about 30% isopropyl alcohol, and I'm using the 99% stuff you get off Amazon, not the rubbing alcohol or anything like that, and with water. And you can use it in a spray, you can use it in a dripper bottle. For this kind of stuff, a spray works as well, and it just sprays on. Doesn't damage anything else. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to spray it where I've got a gap, and then get a little bit more of this grout and just sprinkle it on. Don't need a huge bit, and it will stay there. It will just absorb the water up and stay where I want it to be. So I'm going to let this just dry up for a minute so I'm not trying to disturb wet stuff. Do I put glue on it? There's cement in tile grout, so I don't really bother. And what I want to do is mix that in a bit with some of the other things so it becomes kind of a detritus layer. So I'm going to leave this now to set. So now what I want to get is that rich, loamy, sort of detritus filled. It's not soil you see at the bottom of a jungle, it's bits of plant and stuff. So I've got some Earth Blend Woodland Scenics blended turf T1350, and it's great. It's the wrong colour, but it's the right texture. It has this kind of feel of it that's just a little bit more foamy than the, well, it is made from foam, than the grout. So I find it gives just a slightly richer feel. And what we're going to do is we're going to colour these in a minute with a stain. So let's put it in, and I can put it into some of these gaps where sort of a little bit of stuff might have built up around the edges of these. These are Noch HO scale leaves. I love them because they've got a little leafy sort of texture to them. So they look like leaf texture. So I'm just going to put some of these on because we want a few leaves in this sort of detritus as well. We want things that look like leaves. So what I now do is just clear off this edge, and I want this edge to be quite defined. It's the edge of the diorama, and when all is on and done, I'm going to give it a good polish so it looks real. So I just want it to be, looks real, looks clean. So I want this to go right up to that edge. So the next thing to do is to glue it, and for that we're going to use the IPA and water. Not a huge amount left. I've actually got it in a dripper bottle as well, which when I've done the initial, if you drip it on, sometimes it can disturb because the drip can be quite heavy. So I might spray it and then go back and just drip to get a bit more coverage with it. And then this is just white glue, normal PVA white glue and water. About a third glue, 2/3 water, but I will sometimes do it thin. It depends on the strength of the white glue. I find white glues are very variable. So some you don't thin as much. Most of them you have to thin quite a bit or they get stuck in the nozzle. So just a light, from a distance, so you're not putting too much movement on it. You need a very fine spray. You see this is a little bit vicious at times. You can tell when you've got enough of this isopropyl alcohol and water solution on when your glue goes in without complaining. If your glue just sits on the surface, dilute glue, then you haven't got enough in. So it's then just a case of going around and just dripping this on. You can see if it balls, then it's probably not got enough liquid in it. See it's balling a bit there? So you've got a choice. You can drip some more of this on so that the whole lot becomes quite damp, or you can just carry on spraying it. Depends on what you're actually doing. And it dries quite quickly, so if you spray it, you'll probably have to respray it. So it's the next day, this is all dry, and for some people it'd be a great colourway, but for me it's not quite what I want. I want it to be just that little bit brown, really, dead. So I'm going back to my old concoction I used for the dark of the tree, and there's not a huge amount, you can still see it in there, but it's quite subtle now, but it's just too blue. And I could paint this in a number of ways, but I don't want to airbrush it because I've took all the plastic off around the outside so I could get this nice and neat. So I'm going to put in a really red paint. This is burnt sienna. It's just a normal artist acrylic. Put a blob of that in. And it's a nice warm colour just because this is very blue. Yeah, very blue. Okay, then we've got our brown that I wanted, which is a very dark brown. And I'm just going to soak this well. And because it's got this Polysorbate in, it will just dry in and soak in and keep the texture looking. And it takes a while. A bigger brush would probably help, but and actually because this is so thin, what I'm going to do is just get a dropper and just drip it on because it spreads itself through and it's just a bit quicker to get it into some of these places. Okay, I'm gonna leave this, and just in case you're thinking you've never seen anyone paint like this, I like it because it's easy, and I like it because it will darken the cracks more than it will the original colour of the stonework. So you can end up with it, well, basically it dries into all the cracks and the top still retains some of the original colour. So I can still see some green coming through from the original leaves, but overall it percolates through and just keeps everything a nice uniform sort of brown at the bottom. So here's the final result. It's funny, it still looks wet, but it's dry. And the reason for that is it's darker than the brown above. And in your mind, that just makes it look like it's wet. I promise you, it isn't. So really pleased how it came out. You can still see a bit of the green coming through, and that dark colour has really, it was so easy to just strip on and wick through, and it's spread nicely through all the gaps and into all the hollows. So very easy, quick ground cover. Well, in this week's Adventures of the Mini Cathys, and we're looking at a day of the life, we're meeting at some of the people you can meet just walking across the kitchen work surface. So there's the big guy, there's the really big guy, there's the other big guy, there's one big guy, there's another big guy, and occasionally you meet somebody who's smaller than you. Woo! But some days, I walk along. Here I am, walking along me. It's a reenactment, and woo! Optimus Prime! Or woo! Bumblebee. I do like Bumblebee, he's great fun. Not that talkative really, but he has a great amount of music. So I can twiddle on a bit more, and then there's Bone Crusher. I don't go on the Bone Crusher guy, he's just mean. He's really mean. He just chases me in his big truck. Thankfully he can't transform. That's okay. And then, well, there's the Wegos. They're quite cute, but they haven't got their eyes in yet, so they're they're just on the side. Yeah. So it's great fun. And then never mind all the HO stuff upstairs, but it's just such a long way up. I can't be bothered to go up there this month. So that'll be next month. Yep. See you then. Bye. One of the things I really appreciate about this house, you never get bored. Well, I know we were bored last week, but that was different. There's always new people to meet. I mean, one of my favourites, Jar Jar Binks in the spare room. Nobody ever goes and chats to him. He's so sweet. How rude! Excuse me. He's just really nice. In fact, there's a few guys in the spare room that most people don't chat to. Yeah, but I like Jar Jar. I mean, he doesn't say a huge amount, I will admit. He's a little bit, he can be a bit stuffed at times. But, he's still a lovely guy. And he's big enough I can sit on his knee while I chat to him. And he's got quite a comfy knee, really, because he's made of material. He's not like some of these solid plastic things. So, yeah, so you just have to go and explore a few more bits. And I am lucky, I am bigger. I can get to places the other girls can't reach. So, yeah, it's not as bad as some people make out. Have I seen you before? You don't say much, do you? Okay, well, whatever. Thought you didn't like Star Wars.